For more, we're joined on the line by Reverend Mzwandile Molo, who's the General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches. Reverend Molo, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Good evening, Paul. Grateful that you're hosting us, and greeting to your listeners.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to have you. Reverend Molo, let's perhaps start here. The South African Council of Churches has condemned the violence against undocumented foreign nationals quite strongly. But at the same time, you acknowledge that many South Africans are deeply frustrated at this time. How difficult is it to strike that balance between compassion and recognizing legitimate public anger?
Paul, in many ways, it is a very difficult balance to keep. But if we keep track of our value system, if you keep track of the things we hold dear, the things we believe in, it is possible to hold that balance. It is possible to say to our people, and which is true, that they live through the disappointment, at least in the last 15 or so years of the journey of South Africa, of the betrayal of the promise of freedom, of how that freedom that they looked forward to, that was worked on not only by South African nationals, by people all over the world, especially in the African continent, of how that dream has not been realized in a deep way, where social services that should be accessible are not. Where lawlessness has taken over the country, where corruption has found a way to be at the cancer that destroys our society. It is able to say to our people who are unable to get schools for their children, whose clinics are not able to run properly, to say to them, your concerns are true, they are genuine. Where we also say to our people, the genuineness of your problem does not mean that the presence of the foreigner in your midst is the cause of that frustration and pain. And because we know that, and we know a greater truth as people of faith, Mpo, that we're all created in the image of God. And therefore, our dignity that doesn't derive on our nationality, but derives from being created in the image of God. Knowing the beauty of our people's heritage, of connecting with our humanity in a deep way, not based on material access, but based on the fact that we are all human beings connected. We're able then to say to our people, your concerns are true, but the solution that we seek for will not be found in our violence against the foreigner. Our solutions will not be found in the dehumanizing language that we use to define those who do not look like us, nor is it found in the intimidation of people because we believe they do not live in South Africa. And if we need for them to find the right documents, that is a process of a capable state. And we need to put pressure on the state, put pressure on business, put pressure on the corruption that is taking place throughout the system of migration for them to solve the problem rather than chasing people up and down the streets.
Yeah. I mean, as the SACC, how do you propose communities practically distinguish between lawful enforcement and xenophobic targeting? Because one also has to question what safeguards can be put in place to prevent communities from misusing the call for accountability to then justify further discrimination. I mean, today we heard quite a bit as we listened to the acting police minister, Feroz Kachalia, as well as defense minister Angie Motshekga, speaking and warning as they talk about the contingency measures they've put in place across all 9 provinces. But really the call ahead of the 30 June marches is for a peaceful protest and for South Africans to ventilate and express themselves, but to do it in a peaceful manner.
Well, in many ways, they echo what we've said to our people and we've seen our document. We've said so as 2 weeks or so ago, but we've said so in 2023 when we called our people to resolve these matters in a peaceful, dignified, and data-informed way so that we know the truth of what we claim to be the reality, so that we do not use anecdotal evidence as a descriptor of the problems that we have. And part of what we say to our people is, no South African have a right to take the law unto themselves. I do not have the right, Mpo, to meet you in the streets, wherever you are, and simply say to you, show me your ID. Tell me whether you're South African. I do not have that right. And our people, therefore, must restrain themselves from taking the law onto their hands even if we are frustrated, even if we are well intentioned. Secondly, we must allow ourselves to redirect our anger, as I said, to the right people. And therefore say to our people, do not look around and check if this people is dark enough for you to think that they're South African or not.
Yeah.
You don't have that right. We need to go out there and say to our people, let us put pressure on Home Affairs, let us put pressure on the border control, let us put pressure on the police to fight the corruption therein, let us put pressure on our politicians to say to them, manage our resources in a manner that is allowing our people to have dignity and hope for the future. We need to say to our political leaders in a very strong way, and I say this and I'll say this until as long as I'm able to speak Mpo.
Mm, mm.
South Africa should have made noise when the Zimbabwean president Mnangagwa changed the constitution so that he can extend his power, stay in
Yes.
power. We should have been able to say as a country, no, that's unacceptable because you are creating instability and lack of governance. Because when Harare is unstable, Johannesburg will be affected. When Maputo is unstable, Durban will be affected. And when Manzini is unstable, indeed, Nelspruit will be affected.
Mm.
So we need to find a way then to work together and say that South Africans, our greatest enemy is not the presence of the foreigner. Our greatest enemy is poverty. Our greatest enemies is joblessness. Our greatest enemy is inaccess to what was supposed to be public services. And for the
Yeah.
last, can you imagine? No, nobody in Tembisa can tell me and convince me that the reason why there's lack of health services in Tembisa is the presence of a foreigner.
Yeah, because
Because
we
we have
know the
seen
history. Yeah, and the corruption
exactly,
has shown us.
exactly. The police problems in South Africa, the lack of security, cannot be blamed on the foreigner. The Madlanga Commission is telling us and showing us what is happening. The dilapidation of the Pretoria CBD and what is happening in those areas, they cannot be located in the presence of the foreigner in Marabastad. It must be located in the corruption that has been taken for years in the city of Tshwane.
Yeah, very well.
So
Thank you
if
so
we
much.
want to solve our problem, we
Mm,
need to work together for those things.
absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking to us there.